One of the more niche areas in Genshin is units who provide elemental infusions to their party members. This kind of kit opens up opportunities for unique team comps and playstyles, but unfortunately, it's vastly overshadowed by many others. As of right now, only 2 characters can give their team an infusion at C0, Candace for Hydro and Chongyun for Cryo. If you have C6 Bennett, he can grant Pyro, but I already covered his weapon idea last year, so to fill in that 3rd slot, I'll add in Kaveh since he has a self-Dendro infusion. Close enough, right? Before we begin, take a quick pause to read all of my disclaimers and personal guidelines when it comes to making these weapon concepts. The description has this info ready to read, as well as music credits and social media links. If you're all caught up, we can now begin.
A shield is not enough to protect the most important things. That's why I must also wield a spear.
To recap her main kit aspects, Candace's burst provides a Hydro infusion to party members, while also giving extra normal attack damage bonuses on the side. It gives her this dual role that's meant to allow for higher Hydro application, but also to increase her viability in normal attack focused teams. The main thing I noticed during the idea phase is that there aren't a lot of teams that specifically benefit from both the Hydro infusion and the normal attack bonuses. If you're building her around Hydro infusions, it's less about the damage and more about the Hydro infusion for things like Bloom and Taser. So normal attack damage is nice, but not as important. And then, for a normal attack team, Candace provides a good bonus, but most of the normal attackers we have come with some sort of personal infusion, so the Hydro infusion can't even be used. So instead of making a weapon that bridged the 2 playstyles together, my goal was to instead make a weapon that simply benefits both. Deshret's Guardian has a 454 base attack and a 55.1% HP bonus. The passive is as such. Catching an elemental burst grants the party with the Divine Overseer effect for 12 seconds. The active character's attack speed is increased based on 0.16 to 0.32% for every 1000 max HP the user has. Dealing elemental normal attack damage doubles this bonus for the remainder of the duration. Additionally, party members under the Divine Overseer effect will generate 1 to 2 energy for the user when elemental normal attacks hit, and this can occur once every 2 seconds. I was juggling around with what kind of bonus to give Candace's weapon. At first, I focused more on the normal attack buffing by giving her a passive that works similarly to Yunjin, buff normal attack damage based on her max HP. And while that would have been good, I decided to do attack speed due to its innate buffing on both a Hydro application and normal attack focused team. The hope, keyword hope, is that if your active character is hitting faster, they can bypass the 3-hit ICD a bit faster. The most noticeable would be with an Electro or Dendro DPS in Quick Bloom to proc more aggravates or spreads, but this can also be useful in Vaporize comps. In a pure Bloom-based team, the on-fielding can help apply extra Hydro to proc more Bloom cores. I won't go in depth about the whole gauge system, but you would need to keep in mind which aura is more dominant in a team like this. The second part of the weapon is just to give Candace some additional energy so she can focus more on her build and HP stats. She can gain a max of 12 energy through this passive, cutting her energy cost by around 20%. For alternative users, any HP scaling support can make use of this weapon. However, none of them are able to enable elemental infusions like how Candace can. This means by default, they're only going to provide around half of the bonus, and to get the full amount, the on-fielder needs to have their own means of infusing their attacks. Another special user would be Hu Tao, who can provide herself with the full bonus since she can deal elemental normal attacks. Compared to Staff of Homa, the attack speed likely isn't enough to become her best in slot. The attack speed section I'm going to show in the calculation is very finicky, since it's hard to accurately calculate hit lag and frames, so take that section with a bit of a grain of salt. But it is still a viable option to use on her. That's all for Candace's weapon, so next up is Chongyun.
One's spiritual energies are at their peak at noon. We must take that time to practice.
Lately, we have been seeing signature weapons becoming more and more niche, like a catalyst that can only work in plunging characters, a sword that can only work for Bond of Life characters. The one that stuck out the most to me was Chiori's, which relies on party members specifically dealing geo damage, and I was like, yeah, I can give this a Chongyun. Exorcist Greatsword has a base attack of 565 and a crit damage substat of 36.8%. Its passive will activate when the user uses an elemental skill. Upon casting, the other party members gain the Yin effect, while the user gains the Yang effect. Both effects last for 10 seconds. Yin increases all elemental damage by 25 to 50% of each character's own attack. Yang increases normal and charge attack speed by 8 to 16%. Dealing cryo damage unlocks the other bonus for the remainder of the duration. This bonus is independent for each party member. In my eyes, Chongyun has 2 main playstyles, either infusing himself with cryo and using him as an on-field DPS, or enabling cryo infusions on other party members and being a cryo off-field support. I wanted to try and make something that respected both playstyles. So, Chongyun's going to start off with an attack speed bonus, and the rest of the team will have an elemental base damage bonus. It works extremely similarly to Shenhe's Icy Quills, and I intentionally designed it as such because of the two characters' connection as auntie and nephew. The goal with this passive is to unlock the other bonus for whatever character is your on-field DPS. In this case, the trigger is dealing cryo damage. I was originally going to have it be any sort of elemental basic attack, but that led to balancing issues with characters like Diluc and Ito. Here's a scenario for both playstyles. If Chongyun is a support, he can cast his skill and his teammates gain the damage bonus. Once they use his infusion to deal their own cryo damage, they will gain the attack speed bonus. In a DPS setting, Chongyun casts his skill and gains the attack speed bonus, and since his skill is already a cryo hit, he will gain the damage bonus for that duration. I ran the numbers comparing his weapon to Wolf's Gravestone for a main DPS playstyle. Once again, attack speed and hit lag are extremely difficult mechanics to calculate, so take the math with a grain of salt. Onto a support playstyle where the math was something well within my realm of knowledge. I tried to make sure his weapon wouldn't outperform the DPS increase that Shenhe provides, since she's a 5-star unit and this is a 4-star weapon. I used Ayaka's Burst as a way to judge the damage. Even though Shenhe's skill buffs 5 hits out of 20, and Chongyun's weapon buffs all 20 of them, the overall damage output is lower. The goal for support Chongyun is that he works better for universal buffing, since he can buff all elemental damage, while Shenhe maintains her spot as the best cryo buffer. Oh, and as a fun little visual thing, you can tell if your unit has a buff based on the yin-yang symbol that would appear on their right. Each half would show once their respective bonus is activated. So, who else can use this weapon? Technically speaking, any Claymore can use it for a support build, as long as the other party member can deal cryo damage to capitalize on the full set of buffs. But for Claymore users who can activate the full buff for themselves, we have Fremine and Eula, as they are the only other two cryo Claymore users. Fremine can use the weapon much better if you're playing him as a cryo DPS. This is because the damage bonus only works on elemental attacks. If you play him as a physical carry, he runs into the same issue as Eula, in which their main damage sources don't get buffed at all since they're physical focused. But that's all the info I have on Chongyun's weapon. Last is Kaveh.
The ability to appreciate beauty is an important virtue. Feast your eyes!
God damn, what a view. Oh shit, we're live again? Kaveh as a unit serves 3 main purposes. Be a Dendro driver for your Bloom comps, never show up as a featured 4-star, and delete your world using only his skill. His main limitation is that his damage bonus on Bloom damage only works when his skill or burst ruptures Dendro cores, making his kit partially unusable in a Hyper Bloom or Burgeon. There isn't a lot we can do to fix this issue, so the best we can do for a weapon is to make use of his Bloom-focused playstyle. An interesting aspect about his kit is that when he ruptures cores, the damage doesn't scale on his EM, but rather the character who triggered the reaction. So if Kokomi triggers Bloom while off-field and Kaveh ruptures the core, it's still based on Kokomi's EM. My weapon idea will address this mechanic. Idealism has a 454 base attack and a 61.3% energy recharge bonus to help cover his 80 cost burst. The passive grants the user 12 to 24 EM after taking damage, and this can stack up to 4 times. When the user casts their skill, all party members, not including the user, will gain an EM bonus equal to 20 to 40% of the user's own EM for 8 seconds. Casting their skill again refreshes the duration and recalculates the EM bonus. Due to the fact that Kaveh is meant to be on-field during his burst state, it naturally means he'll take damage from the Bloom cores, meaning that getting the 96 EM from his weapon should be easy. His A1 already heals him based on his EM, allowing him to sustain himself. His A4 also provides extra EM when his basic attacks hit, further boosting the passive of his weapon. As mentioned earlier, the ownership of the Bloom cores is generally shared among the team, meaning that if I were to boost only his own EM, it would create issues with the rest of the party's Bloom output. Speaking of, let's explain that second part. It works similarly to Sucrose' A4, in which his own EM is shared among the entire party. This allows a team to benefit if they are the ones to trigger the reaction, and even if it's not Kaveh's intended teams, the EM sharing does benefit the Hyperbloom and Burgeon variants, and even the Quicken teams. Keep in mind that it will be harder to get the EM bonuses in Hyperbloom due to the core's smaller hitbox, and for Quicken, you inherently lose out on a bunch of Kaveh's Bloom-based utility. Let's say that Kaveh is running this weapon on full EM on Deepwood. His total EM without any substats is going to be around 853. That means the rest of the team is going to have their EM increase by around 341, which is a pretty sizable increase in damage. If you choose to build EM for other Claymore users, they can technically use this weapon as well, but the only other major user of this weapon would be Sayu, since she has direct EM scaling in her kit. If you run her as a quick swap without any means of intentionally taking damage, she'll lose out on the 96 EM bonus, which isn't that bad, it just means that the team sharing is slightly lower. Alright, I think I'm done covering everyone's weapons for this video. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribing to support the channel. Let me know in the comments which ideas you liked, what you would change, and any alternative ideas you may have. Thanks again for watching everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye!